Hello, I have with me Mr. Dilip Rajakarier, the CEO of Minor Hotels and COO of Minor International. Mr. Rajakarier has been in Sri Lanka to address the future of tourism as a panelist and a guest speaker, sharing with us his experience and expertise of the industry. Welcome, Mr. Rajakarier.
Thank you very much.
My first question to you is, tell us how a bet in a pub ended up as a career in tourism.
I've always, in my career, my goal has always been to win, and also that's always been one of my passions as well. So actually, we were joking in a pub, and we bet on something, not using money, but using technology. And I said, okay, I will take on the challenge, which I did. And the reward for the challenge was that I get offered a job in a hotel group, which I did, and that's how I started off my career in the hotel industry.
And how long ago was that?
That was back in 1990.
Okay, so we are reaching almost 3 decades now.
Almost 3 decades, yes.
Right, okay. And had you worked in the hospitality industry previously?
No, I didn't.
What was your previous background?
My previous background was I was in IT actually. I used to write programs. I used to design systems, and IT was my first in terms of education. I went into IT to do my higher studies in IT, and then followed that up in the UK as well. So that was my first foray into the employment sector.
So part of the minor portfolio is Anantara and Avani. How are they faring in Sri Lanka in the current climate?
Actually, the current climate, of course, the recent incidents in Sri Lanka hasn't actually helped. But at the same time, these things happen all over the world. I think from our perspective, there's not much point talking about what's happened. And it's about what we can do to be proactive and also drive tourism again. Because Sri Lanka, we believe in Sri Lanka. We came into Sri Lanka in 2006, actually during the war at that time. And we were one of the first investors to come into Sri Lanka and invest in Sri Lanka because we had a lot of confidence in the market because we believed in the tourism sector in Sri Lanka. And coming from Thailand, we felt from a guest experience perspective, whatever Thailand can offer, Sri Lanka could match it as well. And that was our initial investment in Sri Lanka.
Right. And how would you rate Sri Lanka's recovery after the Easter bombings?
It's been slow, especially in the high-end sector. And I think what the guests, from a tourism perspective, what the tourists are looking for is that confidence in terms of how the country portrays itself after the incident, to say that we've got things under control, everything is back to normal, and it's a safe place to come back. So they're just waiting for that assurance, and I think that's something we as hoteliers have to also create as well. So that's that's the main.
Is there anything else you feel that the government and stakeholders of the industry can do more of to lure the tourists back here?
Yes, I think the government, I think what we have to do is we have to build a sustainable tourism platform for the future. But that also, there's a twofold thing. One is to create investor confidence so that the investors can come and invest in hotels here in Sri Lanka and develop the product, which is quite attractive for our customers or guests to come. And the second one is from a tourism perspective, we really need to target some of our key markets. And within the key markets, also target some of the market segments, like whether it's weddings, whether it's meetings, incentive business, conferences, banqueting. So those are things I think, and I think that's something which we need to bring into Sri Lanka. And from a government's perspective, I would say, the government also needs to invest in talent. I think the biggest challenge we have or we face in Sri Lanka, and especially, we're talking about tourism numbers growing from 2 million tourists to 5 million tourists, is the people. I don't think the talent is readily available here today because most of the good talent have actually left Sri Lanka. So how can you bring them back? And also to invest in training, development and all those of our people so that they can be ready to serve and give that guest experience as well. And tax incentives, initiatives so that investors can also invest in Sri Lanka as well. So I think there's a lot of things the government can do to help to drive tourism if they believe that tourism is one of the key drivers of our GDP growth, which it is. So I think the government needs to have, I would like to see a much more of a robust tourism plan for the next 3 to 5 years, but not just have a plan. I think we keep talking and talking and talking, but nothing happens in reality. For example, today, we want to create the best destination. Sri Lanka has the best destination, and we want to drive the high-end tourism here. But some of the things our learnings from other countries, if say for example in the Maldives, which has been successful in driving high-end tourism, they've created that facility, they've created that infrastructure, even though it's a small set of islands. So during the high season, if I go to the Maldives, the airport is full of private jets. Right. And that's because of the high-end tourists actually flying in their private jets and spending the money. Sri Lanka doesn't have that facility yet. And I think, it also brings investors here. It also brings high-end tourists here. And I think, this is something we've been rallying with the government for the last 5 years. And it would be nice to see the government taking some actions in terms of, doing certain things and really driving the tourism landscape in Sri Lanka, but also coming up with the infrastructure plan and a solid plan to make things happen, and also a marketing plan to spend the marketing dollars and to see the outcome as well.
Part of the infrastructure I would consider is finding the right talent, the people to work within the industry. What would be your advice to youngsters considering a career in the hospitality industry?
Youngsters in Sri Lanka? I think, the hospitality industry is not an easy industry to work because we're dealing with people. And I always say to our people, our team, if you don't have the passion and if you don't love what you do, hospitality is not the industry for you. And I think in the past, hospitality has been seen as a downgrade, from a Sri Lankan perspective as a profession. But it is not true, because actually, the hospitality profession has some fantastic outcomes and some fantastic career prospects as well. What we would like to see, and to see the talent here, is to say, how do you build up that talent pool, but also give them the facility and the infrastructure so they can also have the education and the development as well. Because today, say for example, the other thing which I think Sri Lanka is lacking is an internationally reputed hotel school. If it was to develop the talent and if it was to really create that talent pool, and once you establish that, and once you train people through that, you can then place them in different countries. There is a huge career prospects for the hotel sector all over the world, because tourism is a growing sector, and in most countries it is also driving their GDP growth as well. And therefore, the jobs in the tourism sector becomes much more important, as good as some of the other sectors as well.
I read in one of your interviews you had said that hindrance is difference to seniority, which you have seen in Thailand, and it happens in Sri Lanka as well. What would be your advice to young people who wish to speak up, and also to those people who should be listening to them?
I think this is why the training, the development, and also the experience becomes quite important for the young people. Both Thailand and Sri Lanka follow pretty much the same philosophy, where when you're young, you always want to respect your elders, and you don't want to talk against, and you don't want to express your opinion, which is fine. But I think there is no reason as to why you cannot express your opinion if you think that there is something wrong. So I think that needs to be opened up. And also for us, for that to happen, I think at the seniority level, people have to change their mindset. They need to be willing to listen. And at the junior level, people also need to change their mindset, and they need to be able to speak up and have the confidence and the courage to also put their points forward in a very constructive way, not in a harmful way, but in a very constructive way, and also explain their rationale and the thoughts on how it can happen.
Okay. And my final question to you is, do you have any plans of introducing something new or expanding in Sri Lanka?
Yes, I think, of course, we are always looking at opportunities in Sri Lanka. One of the things we face is that, today we have 4 hotels, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to be in the hill country and also in the East Coast. But I think it's a little bit too early because the infrastructure is not yet developed and it's not fully matured yet. And I think that's something we would look at in the future. We would also look at maybe a wellness concept, because again, wellness is a new thing which is also driving tourism as well. And today, especially the millennials or the new travelers, we call them, they're much more concerned about their food, they're much more concerned about their health, they're much more concerned about their body and mind. So I think, and there is a market for that. So I think we would look at that as well.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.